You're watching continuing coverage of the coronavirus on CBT News.
Hi everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick with CBT News. Thanks so much for joining us today as we continue this coverage of the coronavirus in retail automotive. We're joined today by Mr. Jeff Brown, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Force Marketing. You know that name, Force Marketing. They're a nationwide marketing company. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us on today's show.
Hey, Jim, thanks a ton. Before we get into this, I just wanted to check in with you. How are you? How's your family? Is everyone doing okay as we all maneuver through this tough time?
Thank you for asking. We are all fine. We're virus free, and we're doing what we need to here at the studio to keep everybody at least 6 feet apart. We're kind of working on a skeleton crew here, and but you know, we want to get the information out to the automotive community and help see if we can do our part in sharing stories, success stories, as well as some of the issues that dealers are facing during this crisis. But thank you very much for asking.
Yes, indeed. Glad to be
and
here,
hopefully
Jim.
you
Thanks
and your
for having
family
me.
are doing well as well. I can see you're hunkered down there in your home, as many of the people are that we've spoken to here at CBT News during this crisis, and which is what I want to talk to you about. I know that you work with a lot of dealers nationwide of all sizes, publicly traded companies that have got hundreds of dealerships, as well as, I don't want to say the mom and pop because I think that makes it sound too small, but for the dealers, the groups that might have one or two dealerships in them. So, and then everything in between. So I wanted to talk to you today to kind of get your take on this. You know, you've been in the industry and in marketing and in advertising and in the auto sector for 20 years. So you have your hand on the pulse of what's going on out there. And so I kind of give me from your perspective, the way that you see this. What should dealers be looking at right now with regard to the marketing of their automobiles, the sale of their vehicles? Is it sensitive? Is it insensitive to do this right now? Is it okay? Do they have approval? You know, they're getting mixed signals, as you know. You know, some people will say, well, it's not right to sell cars right now. And then, of course, everybody will say, well, these people have got to go to work. They've got to pay for themselves. And as you know, about 1 million people work inside of car dealerships every day. And then you've got millions of people that rely on transportation to get to and from. And those people include, you know, health workers in a big way, and emergency people, and police, and city workers that keep the lights on. So sorry for the long opening, but I'm passionate about this, and I'd like to hear your take on it.
Well, I was kind of taking notes there as you set up that question. There's a lot to unpack there.
I know.
And by the way, these are big questions that we all have to be asking. And you know, for us at Force, we're faced with the same stresses in our business as a partner to the automotive community that the dealers are faced with.
Right.
So every opinion that I will have that I may share with some passion at time, I want you to know that we're considering the same thing in our own building.
Mm-hmm.
And as we think about this, like, what should we do? The first thing we have to do is realize that as a nation, we are under stress reaction that is driven by fear.
Right.
Now, some of that fear is 100% legit because we are losing lives, specifically in the elderly population.
Sure.
This contagion is running rampant through the country.
Mm-hmm.
But as business leaders, we have to be able to park the fear and then think about what is the strategy. And there has never been a better time for us to lead our businesses, whether that's at Force Marketing and Helix Technologies, or whether that's in an automotive dealership. And at any point that fear becomes the number one stimulus to how we make decisions, most of the time that's going to be wrong.
That's right.
So my advice to myself, to our team, to dealers is to give yourself some space to think, and not just to think about the panic that can be portrayed on the news, but to think about what's the business that we need to be in 30, 60, 90 days and in 1 year.
Right.
And to really think about, where is the consumer right now? Because there is a large percentage of the consumer base that is healthy, but scared.
Right.
And they're scared because they're thinking about, how do I pay my bills?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where some of our conversations have gotten really interesting with some of the largest dealer groups and everybody in between. And the conversations have gone sort of like this. A lot of conversation is around cost cutting. By the way, it should be.
Mm-hmm.
We are having to pay less.
Right.
We are all having to have furlough conversations,
sure,
and folks taking financial haircuts. But after we do that and we prepare our business, then we have to lead, because here's what we cannot do. We cannot furlough our customers.
Right.
Because if we furlough our customers, we cannot bring back our employees. And I believe that we all have a duty to dig in together, competitors alike, to lead through this. And I think about things like, look, this is the industry of Henry Ford, which is a cornerstone of America.
Mm-hmm.
Dealers are cornerstones of their communities. And rather than customers, it's almost like they have constituents. So I feel like right now, there has never been a greater time for anyone in automotive to step up and absolutely lead. And we cannot lead by curling up in the fetal position. And by the way, that's also not what dealers do.
Right, that's right.
Dealers remain the heartbeat of so many of our communities.
That's right.
But one of the fears that I have, Jim, is that because of the panic and because of the fear, that we absolutely turn off all of our communication to our customers or constituents in the market. And I think that is the wrong thing to do. Now, let me tell you this, because I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying. I'm not having any conversations with any dealer group, large or small, where I say you should continue to spend the same thing you've been spending on marketing. I do not believe that is the case.
Right.
I believe we need to be right-sizing these budgets in a big way,
right,
so that we can run healthy businesses. But I do believe that if we stop the communication with our customer, it is a big problem.
Right.
Let me tell you why. Let's think about the percentage of the population that is not affected directly with the virus in their body. There's a bit of a virus of the mind right now where they are thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to prioritize my bills? If their compensation was cut, if they were furloughed, everything they are thinking about is, how do I provide for the family? Now, we know there's a stimulus bill that's coming out in real time, but these folks are thinking about this across a wide range of issues. And I believe never before like this that the automotive sector is best positioned to help provide financial security for the next 3 to 6 months. And what I don't want us to do is look past no payments for 90 days or no payments for 6 months, or the assurance campaigns that you see coming out of some of these OEMs. Because let's paint this picture. If you were making $45,000 a week ago, and today you're making 30, and you've got a rent payment, you have a car payment, you have a student loan, this is a scary time.
Right.
I think the automotive industry is in position that with every automotive transaction, it's really not about the car. It is about providing a financial lifeline, where the essential need of transportation, which is important enough,
right,
absolutely second. So not only does it make sense for the business, but that doesn't even matter to me right now. What matters to me is this transaction is a mechanism to help people feel better in their community, coming directly from the automotive dealers who are cornerstones of the communities that they serve.
So your point is that with these incredible programs right now, programs like we've never seen before in the industry, coming from OEMs, where there is 6 months until your first payment, or probably on your 7th month, it is 0%. They have extended the terms to 84-month financing. They've lowered the credit requirements to get into a brand new vehicle. So the OEMs are stepping up, and now what you're saying is really now it's up to the foot soldiers, those being the dealers out there, to carry this message to their communities, rather than curling up, to your point, in a ball and saying, let's just wait this one out. In fact, you're proposing that do just the opposite, because there's a lot of people hurting in those communities financially, and the dealer has the solution through the OEM program. Am I getting that right?
That is exactly what I think, and it really is about the dealer taking a leadership position, and it is not about marketing. It's about communicating the connection to the local community, which the dealers have, because it truly is relief. It truly is no longer about selling cars. They happen to get dependable transportation out of it.
Right.
But what this 3 to 6 months can mean for someone
Sure.
is enormous. And I don't want us to look past that. And by the way, Jim, that's not just true for those that are making, in that $40,000 to $50,000 range. I'll tell you my example. I drive a 2018. I'm a truck guy, 4-wheel drive crew cab. It's only got 15,000 miles. But let me tell you something, friend. I've also got bills.
Yeah.
The better we do in life, the more stuff that we have to take care of.
That's right.
Kids, schools, homes, all of those things. So to me, I'm absolutely out of market last week.
Right.
But right now, I'm in the market, because if I don't have to make a payment for 6 months, and now my 2.1% interest rate, which was best at the time, now goes to zero, that allows me
Right.
to do something else, whether that's save. Look, I'll tell you something else, and maybe I'm getting too personal here, but I think human connection is what we all need right now. I also own 2 restaurants in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and I am getting gutted.
Right. I bet.
From a pure financial standpoint,
Right.
rather than make my payment,
Right.
I would take that money and I would rather pay it to the workers in the restaurant
Right.
that right now I am unable to pay. So you have my story on one end.
Yeah.
You have a $40,000 person that was cut to 30, and you have everything in the middle. And I can tell you this, I have greater belief in the automotive sector to be able to help faster than the government can. And by the way, the government's working very hard. This is not a knock on the government, but I know I could go to my local dealer in the next 24 hours and I could start to put in place those mechanisms to help those other than me. I don't want us to look at this 0% and deferred payments up to 6 months as a way to advertise and get people to buy cars. Because if that's what we think, I think we're missing it.
So let me back up a minute, because you said this is not an opportunity to advertise, but then you also said for dealers that they've got to communicate and get the message out. If that's not through advertising and marketing, how is it?
Let me clean that up. I'm saying we're not advertising for the sake of advertising and utilizing, no payments for 90 days as a call to action. The dealers have to advertise. But I'm saying it's more about communicating the benefits of financial relief to the market that the OEMs as a catalyst have started. And now the dealers need to take the baton in their local communities and communicate the right way. You still have to use media in order to do that. But you have to have the right mix of media. Your message has to be one-to-one. It has to be personal. You have to spend much less than you spent before. Now, what I'm not really interested in doing on this call today is getting into, hey, here's exactly how I think you should advertise.
Right.
Right? We're happy to help people do that, but I think my message is better focused on the fact that we have to change our mindset, and the fact that we are called on right now that it is our duty to lead, not just lead in automotive, lead in America as a category. And I believe that we can. I'm bullish on what we can do together, but we have to start now.
That's right. That's right. And to your point, there's consumers out there that need to have these programs put in place for them. So if you go down to your local dealership and it's closed, that's a tough thing to do, even though you want to pick up that new Ford or that new Toyota or that new Chevy or whatever the case might be and benefit from those incentive programs, that are out there. Not to mention, it's that dollar is going to go a long way with the employees of that dealership, with the dealer himself or herself, whoever's running, whoever owns the store, and the dealer group. So it's really one of those stimulus packages that the OEMs are kind of putting forward to say, look, we need to keep the factories open and we need to be selling this product as well. We need the dealers, to your point, to get that information and that point across to the consumers, without a doubt. Not to mention, you know, the millions, literally, I think it's 1.8 million in the next 90 days of lease turn-ins that are coming due, right? We already know that. They're coming due, those cars have got to be turned in, and those people in that 1.8 million need another vehicle. They don't stop driving, they need to get around. So, and we all know that once the virus is beyond us, you know, Trump is right about this. There will be a boom. There will be an economy that jumps up very quickly. You know, we all have that, you know, on our side, because that's you know, we don't know if it's 90 days away, we don't know if it's 6 months away, we don't know if it's a year away, but we know it's coming. You know, which is much different than the downturn in the economy in 2008, 2009 that we thought this may take 10 years. That's not going to be the case here, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And look, you mentioned a couple different things that I want to address. You mentioned closed dealers, because like that's a different ball game and how they have to operate. You mentioned the lessees, and then you mentioned sort of the comeback strategy. Let's talk about the closed dealers for a minute, because that's a tough situation. Service is obviously essential, and I've had some conversations with those that are big in different regions of the country that are shut down. And here's one of the things that I share with them. Listen, because the dealership is closed, that has nothing to do with the sentiment of the customer in your market.
Yeah.
The same story that we discuss when we talk about the $40,000 employee that was cut to 30 that needs this as relief.
Right.
They're still looking for information. They're still looking for answers. We know that web traffic is up 50%. Streaming is exploding. We know that traffic via the laptop is through the roof. They're making decisions in their mind right now on how they are going to get relief. And once again, the car happens to be the mechanism to make that happen. So what we're sharing with dealers that are in the closed markets is, listen, find a maintenance level schedule that makes sense for you to advertise, communicate how you may be able to help them with the right message. Chat, the phone, Facebook Messenger, all of those things that you can do in advance of registering a vehicle, that type of stuff is still going to happen. So where do you want your dealership to be in 30 days, even though you're closed right now? And there are super smart dealers out there who are all over that. And I think that's super important. The 1.8 million lessees, and I think it's like 4.5 between now and the end of the year. These folks in the next 30 days, if they don't turn their car in, they get hit financially. If they do, they buy a new one, they have no payments for 6 months. That has to happen. Our dealers, as they think about providing a service, but also taking care of their own business.
That's right.
Because they still have to take care of their own business. Those opportunities are there, they're clear and present. And there are additional audience segment opportunities that each of the dealers need to think about as they move forward. Because as we talk about a more efficient advertising budget, those decisions are going to need to be made. And those are the conversations that we're willing to have. As I said, I don't want to get sort of too deep in that today. It's really for me right now about how do we lead internally at Force, our teams, and then how do we lead as an industry? Because if we shift the mindset, and everybody's talking about stay strong and be positive, I agree with all of that. But let's get real detailed on what does that mean? How do we do that? And how do we super serve our communities? And then let's just execute like crazy together. And I am all in on that.
Right. You sure are. I can tell you're passionate about it, which is great, because that's exactly what the industry needs right now. Dealers need to get repassionate about the business, because it's tough on dealers. And they're thinking, do I just shut down? Do I live in a cocoon? And to your point, that just doesn't have to be the case right now. In fact, to your point, it's to say, no, this is when you owe it to your community to be out there providing these services and these offers to the very people that need them. So Jeff Brown, Chief Revenue Officer at Force Marketing, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on CBT News and giving us so much of your time. I know that you're a busy guy there, trying to keep things together at Force Marketing and keeping all your clients happy. So thanks again. Hopefully we can call on you again to kind of give us an update as to how things are moving along in the marketing world.
Jim, thanks a ton, and we'll talk soon, and the best to you and your family.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for watching coverage of the coronavirus on CBT News. This has been a JBF Business Media production.